The rape of Casca by Griffith is often said to be the most shocking moment of the eclipse, and perhaps in all of Berserk. There are many other violent rapes in Berserk, and even Casca is brutally sexually assaulted many times before and after the eclipse. Yet, these scenes are never cited as having more impact than Casca's iconic rape. Of all the sexual violence in Berserk, this scene in particular appears to stand as extraordinary. Understandably then, much analysis and investigation has been done into the precise character dynamics of the rape, usually in an effort to answer why. Why does Griffith do the rape? I want to bring up an aspect of the rape that I feel is not touched upon often. Even in the really great analyses of the subject, I feel they miss a root cause of Griffith's behavior. They do not consider deeply the profile of the rapist, and the personal reasons that lead rapists to rape. First, let's interrogate an unstated assumption we bring to the discussion about Casca's rape. Why does rape happen at all? The simple answer is that people rape other people all the time. Couldn't Casca have been raped for normal reasons? When given the option to exploit and violate, many people simply lack the self-restraint not to do so, and they lack the empathy to care for how it affects their victim. While rape is uniquely terrifying, the underlying reasons why it happens are not particularly unique. It's common to almost all the unethical behaviors that almost everyone engages in to some degree or another. These underlying reasons are so common that many rapists don't even recognize the rape they just committed as a rape. Griffith appears to know exactly what he's doing to Casca, and we know he's perfectly capable of restraining himself from doing such a thing. For this reason, combined with the horrifying setting of the rape, even people with blinders of rape culture recognize the act as monstrous. We ask, what's the point of inflicting this suffering on Casca? Our conclusion is that it must lie in some monstrous aspect of Griffith's personality, something that allows him to be especially evil, like a demon. There's no shortage of analyses of Griffith on this subject. People theorize it was about re-establishing control of his autonomy over his own bodies and others' bodies. It was to get back at Guts for abandoning Griffith emotionally. It was to dominate Casca in the face of Guts wooing her. It was to destroy Casca and Guts' ability to have a family. It was to plant the seed of his eventual reincarnation in Casca. I don't think these theories are incorrect or incompatible with the thesis of this video. This thesis' aim is to identify a basal reason for Griffith's behavior, something that can stand in support of all these other theories. First, let's set aside the image of the demonic rapist and return to the profile of the common rapist. Rapists often know their victim personally, and even have a good relationship with them prior to the rape. Check for Griffith. Rapists are also usually in a position of authority over their victim. Check again. I think almost everyone who reads Berserk will have picked up on those, but it's worth reminding ourselves of them. The last point we'll consider is that rapists frequently have been raped or sexually abused themselves. Any sort of abuse early in one's life statistically increases the chances of that person abusing others later in life, even in situations seemingly unrelated to their past trauma. It's just a really sad fact that makes the crime of abuse and sexual violence all the more loathsome. I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. Griffith was just a teenager when he slept with Governor Genin, probably only 14 to 16 years old. However consensual the prostitution was, Griffith's conversation with Casca afterwards makes it clear that the event was traumatizing. In other words, it's undeniable sexual abuse early in Griffith's life. I most often see Governor Genin brought up only in relation to whether Griffith is bisexual, asexual, gay for pay, or whatever, as if the main importance of the scene was to help us figure out what set of genitals Griffith prefers. My argument is that this scene, the actual sexual abuse and not the reflection at the river afterwards, is more fundamental than it is usually given credit in the discourse. It is an inciting factor that allows Griffith to be abusive in general. and it's why Griffith is willing to rape Casca in the first place. Because of the monstrous nature of the eclipse in general, it leads us to believe that the rape of Casca is also the act of a monster. However, prior to meeting our expectations of a demonic rapist, Griffith actually meets our expectations of a banal, everyday rapist first. There's a decent chance you know a rapist like Griffith in your own life, and they just haven't been discovered yet. Doesn't that make Griffith more terrifying than any demon? Okay, so I'd be a total idiot if I didn't also mention Guts and his experience with sexual violence. Similar to Griffith, Guts was raped when he was just a child. Predictably, later in Guts' life, we see him struggling to suppress the desire to abuse and rape others. This is a nice supporting point to the normal rapist thesis. It shows that Berserk author Kentaro Miura is aware of how the cycle of abuse works, and therefore it makes it more likely that he wrote Griffith's character with that cycle in mind. It's also arguable that Guts' rape was far more violent and traumatic than Griffith's. Guts was far younger than Griffith when it occurred, and he didn't willingly put himself into the danger that led to his rape. This makes it all the more admirable that Guts does a better job of resisting the urge to assault Casca. I know it's kind of fucked up to award points simply for not raping people, but I think you understand now why it's not exactly simple. I'd also like to point out one more interesting connection raised here. The dark, bestial, and base feelings in Guts are presented simultaneously as core to Guts' personality and also as the demonic pull of causality. Indeed, causality and the demons are often compared to humanity's negative desires and urges. Therefore, I think it's fair to read the God Hand and causality not as a corrupting external supernatural force, but in fact as a concentration of the natural and internal forces of humanity. Setting aside other avenues of discussion we could pursue from here, this presents a contradiction when Griffith's femto incarnation is said to be cold and devoid of humanity. To resolve this, it would be better to say that when Griffith joined the God Hand, he became hyperhuman, and he dropped all the artificial sociological restraints on his behavior. This reading is probably more harmonious with the overall themes of Berserk as they relate to demons, desire, and causality. But instead of belaboring that here, I'll just leave it as food for thought. Thanks, and see you in the next one.